Hey everyone, welcome to day three. So today we're really starting to get into the fun stuff. We're going to start talking about what we can eat, which is probably why everyone is here. Let's start getting into some of that. What are the ingredients and what are the foods that we can really, have on keto. Before I kick off, I just wanted to say that we're going to split the food category into two. So tomorrow we will talk about the type of things that we should be avoiding, and whilst I will touch on a couple of things today, tomorrow is really going to be about what are the things that you should be looking to cut out of your diet, or at least be careful with. Today is really more about the type of foods that we should be looking for, and also where to find them, which is obviously a key part of being successful here. We'll also be touching on the dreaded keto flu and what are the things that we can do to start taking that into account and start dealing with that head on. Because before we actually get into our keto way of eating, we're going to just prepare ourselves and really give ourselves the best chance of eliminating that keto flu from our possibility section. So look, let's quickly get into it. With keto, it has a reputation certainly of being a bacon 24/7 kind of way of eating. And whilst that is something that you could do, and some people do, I would really highly recommend that that's not the way you approach it. There's lots of really healthy, natural fats that you can consume in your diet that will help you have success with keto, get your fat levels up, but not leave you susceptible to being, just the potential downsides, I guess, of having just that high level of just bacon fat in your system. So it has a reputation of being that way, and certainly there's lots of ways that you can do keto that are not that way. In fact, even within the Keto Yourself Skinny group, you'll see that we have a folder specifically for vegetarians. So, it doesn't really even have to include meat. It makes it a little bit more challenging, but certainly, there's options. And if you happen to be vegetarian or vegan, there are lots of ways you can do that, and substitute out the meat. Or even if you're pescatarian, you can do that with fish. There's lots of ways of doing this. And I guess really what I wanted to talk about today was giving you options in terms of how to identify what are the things that you should be eating. And then tomorrow we'll talk about what are the things that we should be avoiding. Now, in short, the one thing I would recommend, whatever style of eating you're doing, is go as fresh and as whole food as you can. Certainly there are things that you will find packaged up in the supermarkets which come in a box or a bag and say that they're keto. On the whole, if I see that, my flags start to raise and start to wave a little bit, because the marketing element of some of these foods means that quite often what you see as keto flagged that way is often nothing like it at all. Often include a lot of ingredients or things in there which are really not going to be helpful on your keto journey. So as much as possible, I would really highly recommend that you stay fresh. If it comes in a bag or a box, try and avoid it as much as possible. And if it's processed, like the things like hot dogs and whatever, you can certainly have those on keto, and I'd certainly do that, processed food. But if you can try and keep that to a minimum and make the majority of your input be fresh meat, fresh vegetables, and particularly keto-friendly vegetables, of course, nuts, berries, things like that, you'll really find that you'll make a lot more progress. The thing that I find with the boxed or bagged products is that they're quite often misleading, and the thing I know when I'm putting the fresh ingredients into my mouth is that it takes away one of the variables. What are the things that could be in that product that will make me store potentially other hidden sweeteners? And there's lots of labeling issues around what doesn't have to be labeled, and small amounts of things that can actually harm your progress may be allowed into packaged food that you just don't even know is there. So really the fresh element is about eliminating as much as possible the variables that can help to stall you or make you not make the progress that you want to. And when you're really dedicated and making a lot of concerted efforts towards having success, the last thing you want is to be undermined by things that you don't know or see. I've spoken with quite a number of people who've messaged me from the group who've been struggling in certain ways, and we've been really luckily able to help them by just helping them eliminate some of the hidden nasties which can come from processed or boxed foods. I went even so far to say I saw a keto food delivery service recently, and they were advertising they would deliver keto-friendly food to your door, and the first 3 recipes I saw on their homepage all had things like corn and other ingredients which are in no way, shape or form keto at all. So doing it yourself, being fresh and eating as much as you can whole foods will really give you the best chance of success. Now, I've put together a guide to help you, but the other thing I promised in the lead up to the course was that by going through this program would teach you the skills to identify what are good things to eat and what are things that you should be avoiding yourself. So starting with the carb manager is a really good start. And so the guide I put together will just help to maybe give you some areas to look at that could be helpful, and things to maybe avoid. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow, but just some of the things where the sneaky carbs can come in. And a good example of that would be things like grated cheese. If you buy grated cheese, you think you're putting a keto friendly ingredient in, very or no carb at all for most parts types of cheese. But grated cheese will often have carbs because they use a flour or some type of a product to stop it from sticking together when you put it in the bag. So just sneaky things like that, which can you can be just unwittingly putting into your diet. And so things like Carb Manager will help you to eliminate them and also make sure you're getting the best results from the amount of effort you're putting in. So of course things like fresh meat, any type really, pork, beef, chicken, poultry, of any description really, like duck, whatever, game, fish, seafood are all great options. Oily fish such as sardines, whatever, fantastic because they've got a high fat content as well as being high in all the good stuff that like omega-3s and protein as well. So really good options. Fresh vegetables, particularly green leafy ones. Things like asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, and things like mushrooms, all fantastic options for keto. And there's lots and lots of ways you can, turn those into, fantastic type of foods. On top of that, you've obviously got things like nuts and berries. You've got all the different things that, go around that, like the, replacing your vegetable oils with things like olive oil or avocado oil, all those type of things. And again, we'll talk about the ones to avoid tomorrow, but on the guide I put together, it actually gives you a good idea. And as I said, the thing is, now you've got Carb Manager, you know how to use it. Scanning the product before you start to use it in your cooking is a really good way of working out what's what. So don't underestimate that things like, when you're cooking if you're cooking in particularly things like canola, which is probably the one of the least friendly vegetable oils to be cooking with for keto, you can be inadvertently absorbing a lot of things that you just don't want to be eating or consuming when you're on keto. So one of the golden rules I have here is that if you're putting it in your mouth, unless there's a glass of water, then put it into Carb Manager, because you will be shocked, surprised, at some of the things that have carbohydrates particularly that you would not ever think about. So even things like, if you're putting, you make a really nice fathead pizza dough, you got, really great ingredients like cheese and mushrooms and, pepperoni, whatever it is you're putting on the top. And then you realize that you put a pasta based sauce, like a tomato based sauce, that can actually be very high in carbohydrates and sugar. So make sure anything that goes into your mouth, particularly for the first few days, you don't have to do it forever, but just get a good idea of what's going in there and make sure you scan it, put it into your daily input, and just see the effect it can have on your day, because you'll be surprised, as I said. And we've sort of helped to rescue many people from the group who've been inadvertently consuming things that they didn't want to, through I guess sneaky or unseen carbs and sugar. So just an important point. A couple of things just with the food. People tend to get the idea that keto is really super expensive, and it can be. People go for like it's grass-fed meat and organic, expensive butters and things like that. And certainly, if you can afford it and you get the best you can afford. But what I would say is that don't feel like you have to do that if it's not in your budget. Frozen vegetables will substitute in case of fresh vegetables, and also a really good way of making sure there's no wastage. If you can not afford the best cuts of prime meat, go for things that are much more affordable. So chicken drumsticks, you can buy big bags of chicken drumsticks a lot more cheaply than chicken breast, and actually for keto, it's a much better option as well. You've got higher fat content, And so, lots of ways of doing that. And I'll show you, I'll provide you with a bit more guidance on having to do keto on a budget. So they're all really good points. And the other thing is that, once you get fat adapted and you're eating the keto way, what you'll find is that you want to eat a lot less anyway. So some of the ingredients may be more expensive, like the almond flour is much more expensive than normal flour. But actually, when you find that you're eating a lot less, you'll find that it all balances out. And in fact, I would estimate that personally, I would spend 20 to 30% less on my food now than I have ever in the past. So, it's an expense, yes, for some things, but overall, you'll find out that you're better off in the whole. As I said, buy the best you can afford. That's my best advice in that area. The other thing with keto is that eat until you're full. So whilst you are trying to hit your macros, your carbs and your protein and your fats, if you find that you're full, which quite often will be the case, when you eat a fat based diet, you'll find that you're full a lot quicker than if you're eating carbohydrates. Carbohydrates will generally make you feel like you need to eat again and more quickly. If you eat a fat heavy diet, you'll find that you're full more quickly, and you'll see the comments in the group every day, people saying, wow, I'm not hungry, should I be eating? And if you get to the point where you're full and don't eat anymore. And that's how people can say that they're doing, fasting. Again, a topic we'll get to later in the course, where they're saying, look, I'm actually, I'm actually able to do this. I never thought I could. It's because they're eating a high fat content diet, and that actually they're feeling satiated. Their body's getting everything it needs, but it's actually making them feel full as well. And that's why it is such an effective way of eating. And I guess that's really it in terms of the food to eat. As I say, there's a guide that I'll provide in the resources today, but also, again, the final point here, just don't assume anything. Don't put anything into your mouth on a daily basis that you're not understanding exactly what the carbohydrates are. As I said, the first day I put in black tea into Carb Manager and it showed it had like 2 grams of carbohydrates, I think it was. I was shocked. So don't assume. Make sure you put it in there, and that will help you get the best results. Now, quickly before we go today, I understand it's a bit of a longer topic, but it's a really important one. We're just going to talk about keto flu. So probably everyone who's talked about or heard about keto has heard about keto flu. What it is really as your body changes from burning carbs to burning fat, you get a bit of an imbalance, and that causes an electrolyte imbalance in your body. And so what happens is that you start to get the symptoms of flu, as the name suggests. You start to get maybe headache, dizziness, you can get a cough, you may feel like you're just a bit hazy, you're not quite on your game, and all of those things are just symptoms of keto flu. Now, yesterday we talked about getting the apple cider vinegar and the pink rock salt. So my best suggestion is to start, before you even start your keto way of eating, if you're not done already, is to take a daily glass of water, room temperature, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 to 2 teaspoons of pink rock salt, mix it all up, and just have that as a daily tonic. Now, if you're worried about the apple cider vinegar on your teeth as an enamel buster, just sip it through a straw. That will help. For some, it's not that pleasant a taste. I must say, when I first had it, it wasn't something I really was thrilled about. But I tell you what, it doesn't take long to, down the glass, and it is a lot better than keto flu and will make you feel a lot better. It will also stop things like, the salt content is really critical. Stop things like, people report foot or leg cramps. So, if people want to exercise and starting on the keto, which I'd really advise, you don't go too heavily in the first days. It's great for exercise later on, but in the early days, don't overdo it. Getting that salt level up is really critical to help you, make sure that you're not suffering the symptoms of keto flu too badly. So get the daily tonic in if you can. What I would suggest is that it's quite a strong taste, as I said. Start with maybe a quarter of the apple cider vinegar each day and build it up to the 2 tablespoons, or a tablespoon, should I say. And again, maybe start with half a teaspoon of pink rock salt and build up to the 1 to 2 teaspoons. If you want to flavor it up a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of cinnamon is a good way to go. It helps to take the edge off the taste and makes it a lot more pleasant. Now, some people love it, so I'm not trying to put you off there at all with the taste. I know a couple of people who really love it, and they keep on taking it even when they get past the keto flu stage, because it's really good for your gut health, and has some other good benefits. You can Google apple cider vinegar if you want to see some of the other good things that it can do. So that's really the tonic. So make sure that you start that today or tomorrow. If you haven't already got the ingredients, make sure you grab them, and really get that into your diet, because it will really help. It'll stave off the effects, and you'll really welcome the fact that you made that decision once you've got going, and you don't have to worry about the keto flu. Most people who take that and keep their salt level up. And finally, the last thing on that is keep your water level up. So make sure you're having lots of water. Really, it will combat the effects, and you can sail through that stage without having any of their negative effects. On the water, try and keep like 8 glasses, or half your body weight in ounces is another way I heard it recommended. Keep your hydration up, because you'll find that that's a good way to go. Last thing, we'll just talk about the action items for today. So they'll be in the lesson notes as well. So first thing is study the resources. Have a look at the note I put together for what to eat and what is good to have, and just some of the tips and tricks in there. So covering things like the meats and vegetables and snacks and other things as well. Drinks. So there's lots of good information in there. Try to keep it as short as possible without being too light on for information. So I hope you find that useful. Second is that what I want you to do is go to Google, go to Pinterest, and for your favorite food, so for next week, what we're going to do is find you 5 days worth of meals. So if your favorite meal, for instance, is maybe lasagna or shepherd's pie, type into Google or Pinterest keto shepherd's pie, or keto lasagna, or keto beef casserole, whatever it happens to be. Now, I can promise you will get so many options back that it'll be untrue. So find the ones you like the best, write them down, put them into your card manager. Make sure they meet the criteria, because sometimes the menus that you find on Google and Pinterest are not always well vetted. Make sure they look like they'll work on card manager for you, and get those into your recipes, so that when we get to next week or the next few days, when we start to get serious about changing our way of eating as well, you'll have things that are ready. And so take the next day or so, find some great recipes, find 5 days worth, and find things that you'll eat. Now, if you're short on time, I've put a bunch of recipes in the resources, all keto-friendly ones. So I've given you a little bit of a shortcut. So you might want to do a combination of things you've researched yourself and things that are in the folder, or one way or the other, 100%. So just choose from there. So you're ready for next week. And then the last thing is start taking your tonic. Make sure that you start taking your keto flu tonic, and that you'll be ready to go as soon as we start the way of eating on a full-on way. So, look, I know we covered a lot more today, and I suspect I may have just gone over my 15-minute limit, so apologies if that was the case. And also apologies for trying to skip through it so quickly. But they're really, really key, foundation stones of this whole way of eating, and, I hope you found that useful. And anyway, that's it. If you've got questions, as always, fire away, and we'll look forward to catching up with you tomorrow, and we'll be talking about the things to avoid. And promise tomorrow will be a shorter day, and, you'll get a chance to catch up. Anyway, that's it for now. Speak to you later. Bye.